Ah, my dears. Sit here with me for a moment, grab your coffee, get comfortable. Today, the story I bring isn't a story of distant kings or prophets. It's a story that could have happened on your street, with your neighbor. It's a story about silence. The profound silence that remains after the love of our life departs, and about how God, my children, writes straight with lines that, to us, seem too crooked. Today's story is about Dona Clara, a woman of faith, a woman with an easy smile, until the day her world collapsed. The title that guides us is this: The widow lost everything until her husband's wedding ring appeared in an impossible place. Let's understand what that everything was. Clara and Antônio were married for 47 years. You know that couple that seems to dance together, even when standing still? That was them. He was the anchor, she was the wind. But life, life has these gales that test even the strongest roots. Antônio fell ill. It was quick, it was voracious. Clara cared for him with a tenderness that only true love knows. Each medicine given, each sleepless night was a silent prayer. But his time came, and when Antônio was gone, he took not only his deep laugh and his lavender scent, Clara's world crumbled. Losing everything wasn't just the longing, my friends. Antônio was a good man, but he wasn't a man of means. The illness consumed what little they had. Clara's grief was accompanied by the cold sound of bills piling up. The house, their refuge, had to be sold to pay what remained. Clara found herself alone in a small rented house with the few pieces of furniture that survived. But the deepest blow, the one that took her breath away, wasn't the house. It was the wedding ring. Antônio's wedding ring. After he passed away, in the hospital, in that cold, silent room, she took the wedding ring from his lifeless finger and held it in her palm. It was her only solace. She placed it next to hers on a chain around her neck, but in the chaos of the move, amidst the boxes, the muffled sobs, the despair of packing up 47 years of life, the chain broke, and both rings were lost. She searched. Oh, my dears, how she searched. She rummaged through every box, wept over every piece of newspaper wrapping, crawled across the floor of the empty house. Nothing. She had lost the man she loved, the house they had built, and now the symbol, the gold circle that told the world she had been loved. It was her everything. That ring wasn't gold, it was memory. It was the last tangible thing left of Antônio. And now, she had nothing, only the silence of God, and a little house that smelled of fresh paint and loneliness. How do we go on when the last thread that binds us to happiness breaks? And so, my friends, the days turned into months, and the months slowly dragged on into years. Dona Clara's life became a ritual of survival. That acute grief, that pain that tore at her chest, gave way to a gentle melancholy, a grey mist that never dissipated. She moved to that rented little house at the back of a church grounds. It was small, yes, but it had a yard. A yard of packed earth and an old fig tree, dry and twisted, that seemed as dead on the outside as Clara felt on the inside. The financial hardship was real. Losing everything meant living paycheck to paycheck. Her pension barely covered rent and basic necessities. Clara, who had always been a woman of plenty, now counted pennies. She made small embroideries to sell at the church fair, but her eyes, tired of crying, no longer helped much. And faith? Where was faith in the midst of all this? You know, my dear, it's easy to have faith when the sun shines and the table is full. But true faith, the kind that matters, is born on the cold ground of hardship. Clara never stopped going to church. She sat quietly in the last pew. Her prayers, however, had changed. She no longer asked for Antônio to return. She no longer asked for wealth. She didn't even ask for the lost ring anymore. What she asked for was strength. Strength to get out of bed. Strength not to succumb to bitterness. But deep down, in the most secret corner of her heart, the absence of that ring hurt like an open wound. Every night, before sleeping, her thumb, out of habit, searched for the ring on her ring finger, and found only wrinkled skin. It was a daily reminder of the loss. She wondered, "My God, why did you allow this? Why take everything? Didn't I deserve to keep even the memory?" These were dangerous questions, questions born from the exhaustion of the soul. She felt forgotten. A widow, poor, invisible to the world, and, she feared, invisible even to God. She was in her own private desert. The sun beat down, the landscape was barren, and there was no sign of an oasis. She was tired of waiting for a miracle that seemed never to come. How many times have we felt like that too, haven't we? Tired of fighting, tired of believing, just tired. Almost 3 years had passed, 3 long years of routine, of embroidery, and of silence. The fig tree in the yard remained there, a wooden skeleton against the sky. Clara had even asked the homeowner to cut it down, but he never came. And then, on a stifling summer night, something different happened. Clara didn't sleep well. Her sleep was light, haunted by shadows. But that night, she slept deeply, and she dreamed. It wasn't a confused dream, full of fears. It was a dream. Clear, like spring water. In the dream, she saw Antônio. He wasn't sick. He was young, as he was when they got married. He was wearing that blue plaid shirt she loved so much. And he was in the yard of her little house. But in the dream, the yard was different. It was in bloom. And Antônio was standing under the fig tree. The fig tree, my children, was laden, full of green leaves and purple fruit. Antônio didn't say a word. He just smiled. That wide smile that wrinkled the corners of his eyes. And with his right hand, he pointed. He pointed to the top of the fig tree, to the middle of the tallest and densest branches, and he just pointed, smiling. And Clara woke up. She woke up with her heart pounding erratically. The morning sun streamed through the crack in the window. The smell of brewed coffee wasn't there, only the musty smell of the old house. The dream had been so real. She got up, her knees cracking, and went to the back window. She looked at the yard. The fig tree was there. Exactly as before, dry, dead, a tangle of gray branches. There were no flowers. There were no fruits. There was no Antônio. Her heart sank. "Ah, Clara," she said to herself. "It's just longing. Longing playing tricks on your head." She tried to sweep the dream under the rug of her mind, along with the other pains. But the image of Antônio smiling and pointing, it wouldn't go away. Why would he point to a dead tree? What was up there, besides dry branches and perhaps an old bird's nest? It was a silly mystery, a dreamlike thing. But for the first time in 3 years, something beyond her pain had captured her attention. A mysterious sign planted in the middle of the night. What did that finger point to? Life went on. A week. 2. The dream with Antônio and the fig tree began to fade, like an old photograph. Clara returned to her routine, convinced it had been just a trick of her tired mind. She even felt a little foolish for having given it so much importance. After all, what could be in a dead tree? She was too busy trying to survive the present to decipher enigmas of the past. Until the storm came. Oh my dears, it wasn't a summer drizzle. It was a downpour. One of those that seem like they're going to tear the sky apart. The wind howled like a wounded wolf. The rain beat against the asbestos roof of Clara's little house with a fury that made everything tremble. Clara spent the night awake, praying rosaries, begging God that the house wouldn't lose its roof. The noise was deafening. The world seemed to be ending outside. When morning finally dawned, the storm had passed, leaving a heavy silence and a trail of destruction. Clara cautiously opened the back door. The dirt yard was now a mud pit. And the fig tree. The old fig tree hadn't survived. One of its largest branches, precisely one of the highest, the one that projected over the roof, had been broken by the wind. It lay on the ground, a defeated giant. Clara's heart ached. Even dead, the tree kept her company. It was another loss. She sighed, picked up an old machete, and prepared for the arduous task of cutting the smaller branches to clear the path. She was in the middle of that tangle of dry leaves and rotten wood when she noticed something. Stuck in the fork where the main branch had broken was a nest, a huge, old nest made of twigs, mud, and strange things. It was a Rufus Hornero's nest, but one that had been reused by other birds. The rain had soaked it, and the wind had split it in two. Clara, out of pure curiosity, poked the broken nest with the tip of the machete, and something rolled out of the hardened mud. It wasn't gold. It was dark, stained metal. She bent down, wiping the mud away with trembling fingers. It was a medal. A small medal of Saint Benedict. She froze. She knew that medal. Antonio carried it in his wallet every day. The wallet that had disappeared at the hospital the day he died. She assumed it had been stolen, lost in the confusion. How, in God's name, had that medal ended up inside a nest at the top of a dead tree? A bird. A bird must have taken it from the wallet, perhaps fallen in the hospital courtyard, or... She looked at the broken branch. She looked at the destroyed nest. And she remembered the dream. Antonio, smiling, pointing exactly to that place. The dream wasn't about the tree being alive. It was about what was within hers. Clara's heart began to beat, not with mystery, but with an almost painful hope. The medal was the connection. The dream was the map. What else? What else did that nest hold? This is the moment, my friends, when time stands still. You know when the whole world seems to hold its breath, waiting for what comes next? That's how Dona Clara felt. There, on her knees in the mud, with the cold medal of Saint Benedict in the palm of her hand. The medal that proved the dream wasn't madness. It was a message. Heaven was, in fact, speaking to her. The storm wind had been the messenger, and the dead tree, the safe. Her eyes, now sharpened by an adrenaline she hadn't felt in years, turned to the wreckage of the nest. It was no longer a pile of trash. It was a reliquary. With trembling hands, dirty with mud, she began to dismantle what remained of that twig construction. It was delicate work. The mud was dry inside, mixed with feathers, pieces of string, and something else. She felt something hard, different from a twig, different from a stone. It was tightly intertwined in the nest structure, as if the bird had used it as part of the foundation. Clara pulled. It was stuck. She pulled harder, her heart in her mouth. The clay crumbled, and suddenly something fell into her dirty hand. It shone. Even covered in dry earth, the object gleamed with that warm yellow glow she knew as well as the lines of her own hand. It was a circle, a simple gold circle, slightly crumpled by time and the pressure of the branches. It was the wedding ring. Antonio's wedding ring. Clara let out a sound. It wasn't a cry, it wasn't a scream. It was a sigh, a breath she seemed to have been holding for 3 years. There it was, the impossible. The impossible place wasn't a safe, it wasn't the bottom of the sea. It was the top of a dead tree, inside a bird's nest. The story formed in her head like a lightning bolt, in those chaotic days of moving, or perhaps before. In the hospital, the little chain must have fallen near a window, and a bird, attracted by the shine, as birds do, took not just one, but both, the medal and the wedding ring, and she took them to build her house in the highest and safest place she could find, a place Clara would never have looked, a place that could only be reached by the hand of God. She stood there, in the mud, holding the ring. Tears came, hot tears, washing away not only the dirt from her face, but the dust from her soul. She looked at the sky, now clean and blue after the storm, and she laughed, a laugh wet with tears. "Ah, Antonio," she whispered. "You and your ways. You needed a dream and a storm to give me back, didn't you?" The miracle wasn't the gold. The miracle was the conversation. It was the certainty that she had never been alone. God knew, all along where her treasure was. He was just waiting for the right moment to help her out. The narrator's voice becomes even closer, more intimate. My dear, my darling. What a story, isn't it? Stop for a moment and think with me. How many times in our despair do we look at the ground? We search for our losses, our lost alliances, in the dust, in the mud, amidst moving boxes, amidst our sad memories. We dig into the past, hoping to find what is gone. But God works on high. What Dona Clara was looking for on the ground, God had kept at the top of the tree. What she thought was theft or carelessness was in fact a treasure being guarded by a little bird. See how beautiful that is? God used the most unlikely creature to guard the most important symbol. Sometimes, my child, what you think you've lost forever, God has simply moved. He has kept it in such an impossible place, so far beyond your reach, that the only way to recover it is through divine intervention. Dona Clara needed a dream and a storm. How many times do we run from life's storms? We complain about the wind, the rain, the broken branch. But what if the storm is precisely the instrument God is using to break the branch that holds his miracle? What was impossible for Clara was merely held for God. The lesson, for me and for you, is one of patience and perspective. God's timing is not our timing. 3 years in the desert, so that she could learn to live without the symbol. And then, when she was ready, God returned the symbol. Not so that she would live in the past, but so that she would have certainty about the future. The certainty that she is loved, that she is seen, that even her smallest desires are known in heaven. The covenant did not change Clara's financial situation. She remained a widow with difficulties, but she was no longer just a widow, alone. She had proof in the palm of her hand that Antonio's love was real and that God's care was constant. And you? What is the alliance you lost? Maybe it's not a ring. Maybe it's hope, joy, faith in humanity. Maybe it's a dream you think is dead, lost in an impossible place. Have you ever stopped to think that maybe God has simply kept it high up, waiting for the right storm to bring it back into your hands? I really want to know your story. Here on this channel, we are a community. We are not just here to listen, but to share. Use the comments below. Tell me, what was your dead tree that God used to deliver a miracle to you? Share your testimony. Let's strengthen each other's faith. If this story touched your heart, leave a like, because that helps us bring these messages of hope to more people who need them. And of course, if you're not yet part of our family, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell. We have many stories of faith to share. May God bless your day, and may you never forget to look up. Sometimes, your miracle is in a bird's nest. Peace be with you.